In this lesson, we're going to learn how to draw a hyperbola. But first, we need to know the equation. So there are two main types of hyperbolas that we get. You get a hyperbola that goes horizontally. Can you see that the arrows are facing along the x-axis? And of course, there would be like a graph. For example, you could have a graph like that. But I'm just going to leave the graph out for now. So when the equation looks like that, it starts with x first minus. So it's almost like an ellipse, but this is not a positive, it's a negative. The other type is when it looks vertical. So when the arrows point along the y-axis like that and like that. If that happens, then you start the equation with y. Okay, y minus k, and then that goes with a. So what I want you to identify is that whatever's in the front, whichever one's positive, that's the one that determines if it's going to be a left and right or an up and down. So if x is in the front, then it's a left and right. If the y is in the front, then it's an up and down. The next thing is that the a squared is always going to be the first one. Okay, the a squared is always the first one. Another thing is that when we were busy with ellipses a few lessons ago, a was always bigger than b. That was for an ellipse. For a hyperbola, that does not have to happen. A can be bigger or b can be bigger. They can even be the same. But a and b, so a does not have to be bigger than b for an ellipse. Now, let's quickly talk about a few things. So the center would be h and k, and the length to the vertex, which is over here, that would have a length of a. Of course, you could also go this way. The same is true for the vertical one. That would be your center, which is h and k, and then to the vertex, that length is a, and of course you could also do the same going down. Let's talk about the focus. For a hyperbola, there are two foci. There's one there, and there's one there. I'm just going to show you the one on the right, just because it's easier, because I've already made some notes on that side. So this distance from the center to the foci, that length is called c. The same is true for the vertical. You would have two of them, and the length from the center to there is c. To calculate c, you would use this formula, like that. It might look familiar, but in an ellipse, we minused. In an ellipse, we subtracted or minused, like that. Okay? But that's not what we're busy with now. So now we are plussing them. So in the equation, there's a negative, but when you're calculating the foci, you use a plus. The next thing we need to talk about is asymptotes, and then after that we're going to go do a whole bunch of examples. Asymptotes are lines that go through the center, and they go diagonally like that, and diagonally like that. For the vertical asymptote, does the same thing, diagonally like that, and diagonally like that. To work out those equations, what you're going to use is you're going to say y minus k equals. Now, you're going to say plus and minus, and then you're going to look at the a and the b, and you're always going to take the y first. So the y is a b, so you're going to say b over a, and then you're going to say bracket x minus h. For this one, you're going to say y minus k equals to plus minus, and you're always going to take the y first. So in this case, it's a first, and then bracket x minus h. So it's always the y's letter first, and then over the x letter. So it's the y letter over the x letter. Okay? So here I chose the y first, which was a b. Here I chose the y first, which was a a. Those are the basics that we need to know. Now let's go do some examples. Before we start drawing the hyperbolas, I just want to make sure you understand a hyperbola equation. So it has to be separated with a minus, whereas if it was an ellipse, it would have a plus. Number 2, it must be equal to 1. The numbers at the bottom, they are allowed to be the same. That's okay for a hyperbola, but it's not okay for an ellipse. Okay, so we have a negative and it's equal to 1, so that's good. Here we have a negative and it's equal to 1, so that's good. Here we do not have an equal to 1, so what we need to do is divide by 6 first. And so 2 divided by 6 is 1 over 3. So you could write that as x squared over 3. Here we have 3 over 6, which is the same as you could say y squared over 2, because it's 1 over 2, equals to 1. So here we have a negative and it's equal to 1. This is a hyperbola. This one is not a hyperbola because there's a plus, and this one is not a hyperbola because there is a plus. So here's our first example. So just remember that whatever it starts with, that tells you if it's horizontal or vertical. It has nothing to do with which number's bigger. That is not necessary. We don't even need to worry about that for an ellipse. We know that the a squared is always first. So that is a squared, that is b squared. And we know that because x is first, it's going to be horizontal, facing along the x-axis. Now, so let's just write that over here. Now, what we need is, let's quickly go write out the base equation, or the standard equation. So, the center is h and k. But because there is no h and k, it means that the center is at 0. So now if I draw a basic horizontal hyperbola, then these are the things we need. So that's the center. The length to the vertex is a. Yes, you could also go that way. That's also a. And then we've got the foci, which are sort of over there. And that length is what we call c. So we already had the center at 0, 0. To find the vertex, which is this one and this one, we need to first find the length of a. So we know that a squared is equal to 4. So that means that a is plus or minus 2. So we can go 2 to the right and 2 to the left. And we can put those points over there. And then from that, we could already draw the hyperbola. So we can just go something like that, something like that, and like that. Then to find, so let's go label those. So negative 2 and 0, and then positive 2 and 0. The foci, which is you would need to find the length of c to be able to find the foci. So to find c, we use the formula c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. And so c squared would be equal to 4 plus 9. So c squared is 13. So c would be plus minus the square root of 13. Square root 13 is approximately 3.6. So that means the length from the center to the left and to the right will be 3.6 units. So I'm going to go from the center, and I'm going to go 3.6 to the right, 3.6 to the left, and that would be our foci. To find the coordinates of the foci, it would just be negative square root 13 and 0 for this one. And then the other one would be positive square root 13 and 0, and that's for this one. Now the asymptote equations. In the beginning of this lesson, we said that the asymptote equations are always going to be y minus k equals to, and then we had either a over b, or we had b over a, and we had a plus and a minus. And what we actually said was that it's always going to be the y denominator over the x denominator. So the y denominator is this one, so that's going to be b, and then the x denominator is the a squared, so that's going to be a. And then in brackets we said x minus h. Okay, so we know that k is 0, and we know that h is 0, so this is just going to end up becoming y equals to, now b is 3. B is not 9, that's b squared. So b is 3, a is 2, we should say plus minus, and then x, because h is 0. So those would be your asymptote equations. So there's two of them, remember? There's one that goes that way, and there's one that goes that way. So that's why we've got the plus and the minus. Okay, so we've done everything. We found the center, we found the vertex, we found the foci, asymptotes. Now for the remainder of this lesson, we're just going to be doing more examples. So here's the next one. So the first thing I want you to realize is that x is in the front. So once again, this is going to be a horizontal hyperbola. So it's going to look something like that. Okay, horizontal. So let's just go write out our basic equation, x minus h over a squared. So this has to be a squared. A squared always goes in the first one. It's always the one that's first. and then this would be b squared. So there we go. Okay, so the center we know is h and k, so that's going to be 2 and negative 4, because that's usually a negative. So that's going to be 2 and negative 4 as our center, so 2 and negative 4, that's the center. Then we know that this is going to be horizontal, so we know that horizontal hyperbolas do this and that, and so the center to the vertex, that is the length called A, and then to the focus, that length is C. So we can get A by saying A squared is equal to 4, so A is going to be plus and minus 2. So we're going to go 2 to the right and 2 to the left. That'll give us the C, the vertex, and then we can draw our hyperbola. So something like that, like that, like that, and like that. Then the focus, or the foci, are going to be somewhere over here and somewhere over here. But to find that, we need to use the formula, which we said was c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So c squared is going to be 4 plus 9. So c is going to be square root 13. Now square root 13 is 3.6. So from the center, we can go 3.6 to the right, and we can go 3.6 to the left. And so let's quickly go label or fill in the vertex coordinates. So the vertex coordinates would be here and here. So that's going to be, whoopsie. So that's going to be 0, negative 4. And then the other one would be at 4, negative 4. Then the foci, so from the center, let's quickly write out the center. So the center is at 2 and negative 3. Now, for the foci, we're going to minus square root 13 to get this one's x value. So we can say minus square root 13. And then to get this one, we can say plus square root 13. So that would look like this. And there we have it. So we minus square root 13 and we plus square root 13. So that would be your foci equations. And then to get the asymptote, we use this equation, y minus k equals. Now you're always going to use the letter with y. So that's b. And then a is the other one, and then x minus h. So let's rather write them up here. Y minus k equals to plus minus b over a, and then x minus h. Okay, so k we said was negative 4, h we said was 2, b is 3, and a is 2. So it's going to become y plus 4, because it's minus 4, equals to positive and negative. Then b is 3, a is 2, and then x take away 2. And that would be your asymptotes equations. Here's another example. So this one starts with y. So because it starts with y, it means that this one is going to be vertical. This is going to be a vertical hyperbola. So remember, the center is h and k. And then the distance to the vertex is a. Let's make this a bit bigger. So once again, center, h and k. The distance to the vertex, that's a. And the distance to the focus, that's c. So from there to there, that's c. So let's go find the center. So we know that the center is h and k. So remember, y goes with k, and then h goes with x. So h would be 0 because there's nothing here. So h is 0, and k would be negative 3. Because remember, this is normally supposed to be a negative. So because this is a positive, k is a negative value. Okay, you might just need to think about that for yourself. So the center is going to be at 0 and negative 3 over there. Then we can find the value of a. So remember that this is always the first one. So a is always the first one. So we can say a is 4. Well, a is plus and minus 4. So now we're going to go 4 up and 4 down. So 4 up would take us there, and then 4 down would take us there. Okay, and now we can draw our hyperbola. So something like that, like that, like that, and like that. Now we can find the value of c, because that's the focus. So we use this formula, a squared plus b squared. So that means c squared is equal to 16 plus 9. So if you had to work that out, c would be 5. Plus and minus 5. So we can go 5 from the center and 5 down from the center. So if we go 5 up from the center, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's going to be there. And then 5 down from the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be over there. So that's the focus. So let's go fill in some coordinates now. So we know that the vertex is these points over here. So this one is going to be 0 and 1. And then this one is going to be 0 and negative 7. Then the foci would be 0 and 2. And the other one would be 0 and negative 8. Your asymptote equations, remember the formula for the asymptotes goes like this. Now it's always a plus minus here, and then you put whatever the y is with. So that's the a in this example. That's with a. That's with y. It's a. And then b is with x. So it's going to go like that. So k we said was negative 3. So it's going to be y take away negative 3. Then it's going to be plus and minus. Now a is 4, b is 3, and then x take away 0. And then we can just simplify that to become y plus 3. Whoops, I'm running out of space. So y plus 3 equals to positive and negative 4 over 3, and then x, because x take away 0 is just x.